I thought that I failed in this career
Yeah.
as a traditional broadcaster. Anyone in journalism knows this word, gatekeeper. In the end, it was always somebody else who had to say yes to you. And on YouTube, I say yes every time I publish. There was an article that said, this YouTube vlogger complains about losing his status with an airline. It was Casey Neistat. When I saw this guy, I'm thinking, I could do this. I like to travel. I
Yeah.
felt like I need something creative in my life. I can't just live a life that has no creativity, just work a regular job. I need to create something. And that's all I wanted to do. And I figured the money will come somehow through this. It was just a blind leap of faith. So really, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. It just felt right. It was passion.
All right, John, thank you for being here. I will jump right in and ask you about your transition from like the mainstream broadcast world to what now is your awesome Clutch YouTube channel. So you used to be a sports journalist, reporter, and now you are a YouTuber. How
Yeah.
did that happen?
Kind of a long story. I mean, I went to school, I graduated college. Not everyone knows my age, in 2006. So a long time ago. And back then, I think YouTube was just getting started. So what I do now not exist. When I was in school, there was no option to go away from the traditional media path. And I was a journalism major. I worked at my campus radio station, Rutgers. I covered all the sports teams. My dream was to be a play-by-play announcer. I didn't care in what form. I wanted to get to the highest level possible.
For Sidney Wilson, I'm Jon Barr, joined alongside Kevin Devaney Jr., and the hype surrounding this game is tremendous.
I chased that dream for years and years, almost a decade, and I think I did pretty well.
What made you chase that dream to begin with?
You know, I think just discovering the radio station at my college, I think that was a bigger factor than the journalism degree. Just doing that, like traveling with the Rutgers teams, doing football, basketball, the excitement. I like to be live in an event and explain to people what's happening. I found it almost like artwork. It was very creative, especially on radio. I got to TV later on, but on radio, you are the eyes and the ears. Every word you say, people are hanging onto it. And there was a performance aspect to it, which I really grew to love over time.
Eventually, you decided to make the switch to YouTube. Was it like a gradual thing, or like one day you had like told yourself that, hey, and correct me if I'm wrong here, this is not working, I need a different avenue?
It took some time. Actually, I think I broadcast my last ever game. It was high school lacrosse, I think.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was my last game at the time. It was, I believe, in May or June of 2015. And then that summer, I told myself, if I don't get a national level job, I'm taking a break. I did 3 years at this TV station. I had a lot of close calls getting an agent, a lot of close calls with some networks. And there was this one network in the Midwest, and they said, John, I think we're going to take you. You're going to be doing Division I men's and women's basketball on I think it was ESPN3. It was the break I was looking for my whole life. And then the guy calls me, leaves me a voicemail saying, sorry, we couldn't get you onto the schedule. This was a summer, and I thought to myself, I can't do another season of high school sports. I'm going to take a break from this. I'm going to see if I miss it. And if I don't miss it, then it's not for me. I took time off and I didn't miss it. And what happened was, I remember this very clearly. I was reading one of my favorite blogs at the time. There was an article that said, this YouTube vlogger complains about losing his status with an airline. It was Casey Neistat.
Yeah.
And I watched this, and I never watched YouTube at the time for vlogs. I didn't even know vlogging was a thing. I would just watch like old music videos and TV show episodes. I knew nothing about vlogging. I knew nothing about content creation, but I saw this guy and I'm thinking, I could do this. I like to travel. And I had a trip coming up with my then girlfriend, now wife, Adriana, to Spain for a few months. So I thought, I'm going to be like Casey Neistat. I'm going to create videos in Spain and I'm going to show people how to do it. And that was how it started.
I will definitely get back to Casey, but like, let's talk about that transition. Tell me about, like, in your head, was it like, okay, I have these skills. These skills are probably like transferable to some extent because, you know, camera, screen, video, sounds like similar, right? Was it similar, or did you realize that eventually that this is a completely different ballgame?
The first thing that really struck me about YouTube, which was difficult for me, was holding a camera by myself. Now I have a camera person, but like people can see this, like holding it up like that and walking in public was so weird. Like, one, I'm holding the camera, I'm controlling it. And then two, I'm filming. I never filmed before. So I actually found that to be the trickiest for me, feeling shy in public, because normally I was in a booth. It was a controlled environment. Nobody was really listening to me that actually was in front of me, but their vlogging in public scared the hell out of me. And then there was other things that I wasn't really good at, like editing. Never edited before. Was terrible at that. Was terrible at filming. What I was great at was talking, though. I was always okay showing people things, explaining things. My voice, people say, is like very like powerful and strong from all those years on radio. So for me, that was easy. But like the technical aspects of YouTube was a huge learning curve.
What was the landscape of YouTube back then? Because like 2015, I was in college, I think. Like, and for me, it was, I still haven't like stepped into like, these are the YouTubers you should subscribe to watch. To me, it was more like, I'm a sports guy, so like I watch like sports highlights just like everyone else did. What was the landscape that you were stepping into?
Well, I was only really focused on the travel vlogging sphere. This was May or June of 2016. So it's the only thing I focused on. There was way less competition, way less channels, a lot of similar types of content, though. The couples who quit their jobs to travel the world. That never felt like me because I was living in New York.
Yeah.
I never wanted to do this 1 year sabbatical. It was always, I'm in New York, I'm going to go somewhere, I'm going to make some videos, and I'm going to come back. So I think the landscape was similar for travel in the sense of, yeah, there was guides, there was vlogging couples, there was vlogging, but just a lot less people doing it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that was pretty much the main difference.
I mean, people today call it, you know, the creator economy, and like there's like so many different aspects to it, and people know that there's an actual way to get paid and turn this into a living. It takes a lot of time, but people still know that that's an avenue. This stat gets like thrown around a lot, but like today, like the most aspired to career, if you ask kids, more than being a doctor or an athlete, is a YouTuber.
Yeah.
The point being, like, people today do know that that's a career, that's a career they can, you know, aspire to. Back in 2015, you said you are obviously leaving a well-paid job, an actual.
It wasn't that well paid.
I know it's journalism. Trust me, I have a journalism degree. I know how awful that can be. But like at the end of the day, you still know who you are. You have an identity. You know what the goal is, and you know if you do X, Y, Z, you get paid this much amount. So like leaving all that, what exactly in your head were you leaving it for?
I actually was not chasing money, which is crazy to say, because back then, I don't think there was this type of resource like your podcast, other channels talking about how to make money as a creator, all of Instagram, all of TikTok, all my feed all day long. I never looked at that stuff. My goal always was 100,000 subscribers. I knew nothing about monetization. I didn't even know how AdSense worked. I just wanted to grow something because I had this big hole in my heart of a lack of creativity. I felt like I need something creative in my life. I can't just live a life that has no creativity, just work a regular job. I need to create something. And that's all I wanted to do. And I figured the money will come somehow through this. It was just a blind leap of faith. I thought, I have some skills to offer people. I'm great at talking on camera. I'm good at like dissecting things, showing you how to travel, showing you all those little hidden gems and stuff like that. So really, I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but I knew it was just, it just felt right. It was passion.
All right, boom. So 2015, Jon starts YouTubing.
2016.
2016. All right. So Jon starts YouTubing. So what was your, what were the first pieces of content that you decided to put out, and why?
Could actually find, I never deleted it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really nice of you. A lot of people like go back and like, is this exactly what I want to put out in my archive? Click, oldest, delete. But like, okay, so you didn't do it. So what was the content?
I think the first video was flying from New York to Madrid.
All right, after hours of packing and deliberating, I have my suitcase ready for the 3,500 mile trip to Madrid.
And I was trying to copy Casey Neistat because he was so good
that
he made it look easy. He made it look so easy. My vlog was terrible. I think it was 4 minutes. But I'll never forget when I published it. I don't know if YouTube still does this, but back then, they always would give your first video a little bit of a kick. So I got comments. I got comments from people. I was like, wow, I got 5 comments. I got 10 subscribers on something I just created. Oh, look at this. I'm going to be a star. This is easy. I think maybe I got like 100 views the first few days. Like I thought it was unreal. Then it got very hard after that. But that first video was just pure excitement. Probably took me like 2 days to edit or 3 days. I don't remember.
So like I will talk about your content and like how it kept evolving, but like let's address obviously Casey and like that being your inspiration. Correct me if I'm wrong here. Like you obviously in your head you were like, okay, I'm gonna do what this guy's doing. And there are so many people who fall into that, for lack of a better word, trap, right? Like, I want to be like XYZ creator, let me start creating. And that's not a bad place to start, because like if that gets you to start creating, that's awesome. But at some point you have to realize that what's your value prop, right?
Yeah.
So at what point did you decide that, hey, like, so I'm not Casey, what exactly are you going to offer?
I think I tried to be Casey Neistat for the first, I don't know, 3 to 6 months. And I realized like, I'm just not him. I don't have that polish. And also what I realized years later is that Casey Neistat did so well because he's Casey Neistat and he lives a really interesting life. And my life was not anywhere near as interesting as his. So I had to go out there and try to, I don't know, formulate these situations which were interesting. So I think over time I started to move more towards the guide sphere of you're going to XYZ location. Here's what you need to do. Here's how much it costs. Here's what you should avoid. I think over time I realized that was my strength. And I think, and I didn't realize it till way later that a lot of the skills I had from the journalism side were starting to pay off. Because it wasn't just the talking, it was also the preparation. It was the ability to put things down on paper and ad-lib it very easily and make it sound natural. These are all things I used to do as a radio guy. I would sit there watching a baseball game in Wyoming for 3 hours by myself, and I have to fill this air. And you learn a lot of very valuable skills, which didn't know, but actually are quite usable as a YouTuber, just to describe food. Like I could just talk about food like a play-by-play guy. Like, look at this, we have this.
Bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich. General Ox done a crazy spin on it, but this is the most classic New York breakfast sandwich you could do.
What he said, like Casey made it look really easy, right? So like, I think that's something which people don't understand. Like, Casey obviously made it look almost natural and seamless, but at the end of the day, there was like an insane amount of like intentionality behind Casey's content. And I don't mean like in a way that he knew what he was going to put out before he started filming. But at the end of the day, his goal was always to like promote his tech company, Beam. So like he started making content talking about himself, and eventually people started paying attention to him, which he then translated to Beam. So the point being, like, there was a lot of intentionality, and like Casey also had like years of experience having done the HBO series and stuff like that. So a lot of people, like, I'm just saying out in the ether, like when you start making content, like if you think that someone else is doing something really seamlessly, more often than not, there is a lot of stuff going behind. So, and that should not like discourage you, but at the end of just realize that there's a lot more things going on in the back end. So like now moving on to you, when you started like making content and you realized that the genre where you are going to succeed the most is the quote unquote guide genre. So like what was the starting point? Because like you're in New York, obviously. So like there's like endless ways to be a New York guide YouTuber. So how did you start that?
I think that I don't want to use the word wasted because I learned a lot the first year and a half to 2 years on YouTube, but I considered myself more of a travel vlogger until maybe the fall of 2018. And what I saw was you would go to a country, you would make videos about this country, and then when you left this country, especially if you were there for a while, the viewers would stop. Now, I'll give you an example. I lived in Mexico for about 4 months from, I think, 2017 to 2018. And after 4 months, I actually grew a pretty nice audience. Now, a lot of those viewers were local Mexicans who were curious what this American was going to say about their country. And I was extremely positive. I love Mexico. My wife is from Mexico, one of my favorite places on earth. But when I left and I came back to New York, 2 videos later, my views were down 70%. And I thought to myself, did I do something wrong? I know my viewers aren't getting served my videos. So I went on community tab and I posted, just want to make sure, guys, are you still getting notifications? And one of the viewers at the time, never forget it, wrote, John, I think if you covered Mexico again, we would watch you. And then it hit me like, okay, it's nothing that I've done wrong. They don't want this content. Then I went to Japan a month later. And I think at the time I had 10,000 subscribers. This was spring of 2018. I did a video about Kyoto. I went to sleep and I woke up the next day. It was probably active for 12 hours. I had 200 views. I thought to myself, you have 10,000 subscribers. You have 200 views in the first 12 hours. Like there's something wrong here. And I began to think about it. And then I think that summer I traveled a lot. I was getting burned out by it. I felt like I was traveling just to make content. I wasn't traveling for the enjoyment anymore. It was always, I need content. I need content. So yeah, I mean, I was extremely burned out from traveling. And I found all these creators who weren't even from New York getting tons of views here. And I thought, okay, what if I doubled down on New York City content? Let's see what happens. I always dabbled in New York City stuff. One of my biggest videos ever was a $10 a day challenge, and it blew up to 2 million views. So I thought, all right, I have some success here. I really started to do not just food. I did guide videos for tourists, and eventually I found out people moving to New York would watch this, like tourist traps, scams, common mistakes people make. Took a few months, and by Christmas, I was seeing a spike, and I'm like, all right, we have something here. And I just kept on going. The momentum built and it built and it built. And I had this huge library of New York City content. So when I decided to focus on my home city, I became like a travel vlogger here. When I'm in New York, I go to neighborhoods that I've never set foot in. I feel like I'm traveling. I still get that sometimes. I filmed a video a week ago in Bayside, Queens. Never been there before. Local was showing me around. It felt like a travel video to me. And New York is so diverse. You can, we can get into this, like have so many different cuisines with someone from that country. It's basically like traveling in my own city.
What do you explain there is kind of like your journey to finding your content market fit, right? So like you dabbled in a lot of different kinds of content. First, when you were making content overseas, you realized that those subscribers were transient, for lack of a better word, because like they would only stay there just to see how this American views my country, right? So basically that. And like when you leave, they're like, oh, I don't give a shit. Like the moving on, so rinse and repeat. So like obviously that audience is like not something which stays for a long time, but you realize that, hey, like if I talk about my own home state, New York, and not just that, like people, like you said, like in Christmas, when people would travel a lot, they want to see what the city's about. So like it was kind of like doing exactly what you explained, like a guide tourist kind of stuff. Like, and to the extent it was intentional or not, you ended up figuring it out that that was your genre. And when you committed to it, it obviously started paying dividends. So when you started like going all in that route, like what was your like decision making while you started to make content? Like, I'm going to give value to people who are traveling to New York. Like, what was that thinking?
I didn't want to do just one thing. And what I love about YouTube and specifically my channel is I'm not just focused on tourists.
Yeah.
They're a big part of what I do. And there are some videos I think they'll like more than others. Sometimes I'll just do food stuff. And sometimes I'll do a video about a neighborhood. And sometimes I'll do a video, I haven't done this in a while, but like moving to New York. I've done real estate tours. Haven't done that in a long time, but I have done it. For me, it's like I have this open palette. And as long as New York City is in the title, I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
So it's like I dabble in different niches. And I think there's very few creators, at least living here, who do that.
Who commit to New York,
and the ones who do a lot of New York content, a lot of times are just lifestyle or fashion.
They're talking about themselves,
Yes. Or maybe they're doing a lot of food.
Yeah.
But I can just like jump between different niches in a way, as long as it's under the New York City umbrella.
Yeah.
And I feel fulfilled creatively. Because if I just did food videos, I'd be like, well, I want to do something else sometimes. I can't just do one thing, but I found this perfect niche. New York is really my niche.
So once you started going like full pedal to the metal, like committed, you found out that this works and this is something which you're passionate about. Like looking back, obviously, like you were coming from the mainstream journalism world. How did some of your like, I don't know, like old friends who are in the journalism space, and I'm only asking this because I'm curious, coming from the journalism world myself, like journalists are like super like judgy. They always keep a tab on what their other peers are doing. So like, did any of your friends like talk to you about like, hey, so like you're not doing like TV anymore, you're like a YouTuber? Like did that happen anytime?
I don't know if my old contacts from sports really cared about what I was doing. I think it'd be different. I don't know if I was broadcasting kickball on some new YouTube network, maybe they'd be curious. But I don't think they really cared. They were like people who work in sports broadcasting. They're so focused on their careers and this very set, narrow path. And I would love to go into that if you want, about why I'm happy I left that field in traditional broadcasting.
Yeah, sure. Let's get into it. Like,
because for me, well, let's look at it. In 2006, I had no other options. A lot of people that do play-by-play, what I wanted to do, we're not even talking about reporting, play-by-play announcers, they're all the same mold. A lot of them look the same. It's a lot. I mean, it doesn't matter to me, but a lot of white males do it. They sound the same. Listen to any television broadcast, there's this announcer voice. And I actually think that was one strike against me. I have a great voice, but I never had this like deep baritone thing going on. And I had some agents say, oh, this is great, but you sound too young.
Yeah.
On YouTube, nobody
No one
cares.
yeah.
And the other thing is the whole, and anyone in journalism knows this word, gatekeepers.
Oh God, yeah.
I had to send my demo tape to people, and maybe that owner of a minor league team had a friend who was recommending somebody, or the TV network, they went to a certain college. A lot of these broadcasters went to the same 3 colleges, like Fordham or Syracuse. I went to Rutgers, decent journalism program, but I had no advantage there. So there was so many strikes against me that I didn't realize. And granted, yeah, I could have networked better, tried working on my voice. But in the end, it was always somebody else who had to say yes to you. And on YouTube, I say yes every time I publish. Every time I publish, 1 million people could see a video, and 1 million people have watched some of my videos before. And probably that's more people than are watching the Knicks game. I don't even know. I don't think the Knicks regional broadcast gets 1 million viewers. Maybe a national broadcast would, but it's actually kind of crazy comparing like how many viewers a sports broadcast has. I don't know. I think I might be getting more viewers here than I would be getting in some small markets.
I think it's not just about viewers. It's also about like what you explained, like the egalitarianism of it, like the fact that you are the only person who's responsible to hit publish. And like when you put something on TV, like there's like a jillion producers, like people you have to go through. And I think that's a really freeing and also like frightening thing. Like only you can press publish. So you're like the only person responsible for your content is yourself. Like you can't blame a producer, you can't blame a director, you can't blame like a content coordinator, whatever. So it's like completely yours. It's freeing and frightening at the same time. But so like you realizing that this model is completely different. Like how did you like react to it? Like the fact that everything that you have learned about like putting content out and the stuff that goes into the back end, you kind of have to like unlearn it to some extent, and like it actually started working for you.
Looking back, I think I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder.
Interesting.
I thought that I failed in this career as a traditional broadcaster. And I told this story on a couple of videos, and somebody left me a very thought-provoking comment. He said, John, I don't think you failed in your career. I think you just transitioned to something else using the skill set that you had. I think he was right. I think I kept that fire going, but I just transitioned it into something new. And when I was a sports broadcaster, I always used to say, man, I wish I was doing this 10 or 20 years earlier when it seemed like all these guys were breaking in. Because in that field, literally, you need someone to have a heart attack to get a job. There are announcers who die, Major League Baseball announcers, they die in the booth. And I'm not trying to be morbid here, but literally they die doing their jobs till they're 80 or 90 years old. You have to wait for something like that. On YouTube, hit publish every single day, and there's a chance that you're gonna do well. So I don't know, I felt like I had value to offer, and there was nobody who was gonna say no to me. And I was gonna prove it to everybody that like I can build 100,000 subscribers. Like nothing was gonna hold me back. And I was not taking no for an answer.
That is so true about like announcers like Ian Davis, Charles Davis, like these people like are like, I'm an NFL fan, so like football like commentators have been there forever, and it's like a legacy. I'm not complaining against it, but like it is what it is. So like if you wanted to break in, it's like a tough field to break into. But like let's talk about that thing, like not working for a brand and like working for yourself. Like right now, there's a lot of conversations about like audience loyalty, right? So like let's think about it. Like look at your content. Like your content, I could have like easily seen similar headlines or similar videos by BuzzFeed, right? 10 places to eat in New York, 10 the most cheapest places to go to New York, like stuff like that. Like those listicle type of videos, that was like BuzzFeed's bread and butter, right? Unfortunately, BuzzFeed News went under and Vice News is close to being bankrupt. The point being, like people are putting their trust behind independent creators more than they are putting trust behind big brand names, right? So did once your content started working, did this thought ever come to your head that, hey, my content is working, but I'm still used to this company umbrella. So let me take my talents to, I don't know, like BuzzFeed or a bigger YouTube channel and tell them that, hey, I have built this body of work. I will work for you for a steady paycheck. Did that thought ever come to your mind?
I was tired of working for other people. I was tired of politics. I lost jobs in sports broadcasting for all sorts of stupid reasons. I lost one of my jobs once because a bigger announcer knew the head coach.
Yeah.
and he went to the head coach and said, "I'll do your job." And they fired me.
Nepotism,
They fired
yeah.
me after the season. I lost, like, I never lost a sports broadcasting gig
Yeah.
for anything that was my fault. And to try to go back into that traditional field after I started to taste success, I'm like, no, I want more success on my own terms. I don't want a boss anymore. Technically, YouTube does own the content,
Yeah.
but I don't do anything controversial enough where I have to worry about being banned or kicked out. So I never, ever had the thought of going back the traditional path. I've tasted that. I don't want that anymore.
Interesting.
I think maybe someone who's newer at this would want the stability.
Yeah.
I was at an event the other day, and I won't say what network it was, but there was a few influencer types like myself. I hate that word, but we'll say it. Content creators there.
Yeah.
And there was this girl from a major network, and we got into a conversation, and this other creator said to her, "Oh, would you ever leave this network to do what we do independently?" And she's like, "Oh, I would love to, but I'm too afraid." People are afraid to leave jobs that have stability these days. I understand it, but I can't go back.
Yeah, it's definitely like a personality type thing, because more often than not, having worked with both TV talents and like YouTube podcast talents, like when TV talents work, there's a sense of, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, like an entitlement. Like my only job is to like show up, deliver the lines, and done. Like other people will take care of it. But on YouTube, more often than not, you are the only guy who's doing the entire thing. Like eventually you end up hiring like editors and stuff like that. But like when you start off, you are the guy responsible for pre-production, production, post-production. So that's a really important point. But like somewhere in that train of thought, you mentioned like success. So success is, for good or worse, we define success by monetization. So like let's move on to like how you make money. So like as of now, what is the pie chart of Jon Barr's YouTube channel? Like ad revenue, Patreon, brand stuff.
Sure. So I'm a creator that actually makes most of his money from AdSense, and not a lot of creators I know do that. With travel, you can do a lot of different things, but just throw some ballparks out there for percentages. I would say 60 to 70% AdSense, 20%, 25% sponsorships, and the last 5% Patreon, merch, which barely ever sell, and some travel guides, which I'm doing now. But it's a lot of AdSense, a lot of views. And I think I have a major advantage because I'm a bit of a resource channel. I've had people tell me they'll binge my channel
twice.
They'll binge my channel before their trip to New York. They will watch hours and hours every single night in their bedroom before they go to sleep. Hopefully they keep it going, get more ad revenue.
Keep the autoplay
Let it play.
on,
Autoplay when they're sleeping, something like that. But like my content's very bingeable. Not that I'm a bingeable person to watch. I don't think I'm that entertaining, but I think it's good information.
The value prop is bingeable.
I think the value is great for them. I'm showing them like cool places to go, ways to save money. So I think I have such a deep catalog of content that over the years, it's like I'm still making money on videos I filmed 3-4 years ago. And this is something a lot of up-and-coming creators don't realize.
Because they have a body of work.
Yeah, just a huge body of work that's not about current events or about some viral trend. It's about something that'll make sense in 3 years still.
Yeah, so you made a lot of points there. So like the last thing you mentioned is like shelf life. Like the fact that your content has insane shelf life, which translates itself to watchability. That's really good.
Yeah.
Second thing you mentioned there was the fact that your content is like really, I don't know how to put it, but like the CPM is probably pretty high, right?
Decent.
Like it's like over the average.
Over average, but probably not anywhere near like a finance channel or anything like, or tech.
Yeah, but at the same time, like it's not like as bad as like a news channel who do controversial stuff. So
definitely
like,
not.
Yeah, no. So the CPM being high, the shelf life being high, and like you said, like it's bingeable. People would watch it over and over again just to make sure that they have all the information. Just like you read a book or read a travel guide, like an actual handheld travel guide a bunch of times to see that, oh, that's that place. Let me note that down. So like it has that effect on people. So all those things combine to basically give you a chunk of ad revenue, correct?
Correct, exactly. Just over the years. I mean, I've literally had people tell me they'll bring my video I had someone say they walked into, it was in Chinatown, Flushing, where there's a lot of restaurants where you won't even see English on the menus.
Oh, yeah.
And they didn't speak Mandarin.
Yeah.
They brought my video up to the counter, showed the guy behind the counter the video and said, I want this. And that's how they figured out how to order.
I mean, again, like the value prop is insane. And like our engineer today, Wolf, he recognized you because like he moved here from Texas. And while moving from Texas, he wanted to see some videos on New York so that he familiarized himself with what he's getting into, and he saw your video, and that's why he recognized you. So anyone who has moved to New York and has done like research on it has 100% seen your stuff, and you know, like that is exactly your market. And New York, I think 8 million people live here, so there's always people coming in and out, so there will always be a cadre of people who are like seeing your stuff.
And it's also tourists, it's people moving to New York, and it's local New Yorkers. So we have 3 audiences that we could even argue are very distinctly different. Actually, coming to the studio, I had a British tourist stop me wanting to take a picture. I was like, "Oh,
awesome.
Hi!" And then it's funny. And then I pointed out Cortlandt Alley, which is across the street from here, where I filmed a few times, like my hidden gems videos. This is one of the only alleys in all of Manhattan, and people film movies and TV shows there all the time. So the tourists, I think, tend to watch for a shorter period, and that tends to build up more in the summer and the holidays. And then you have the people moving to New York. They will also only watch for a period of time to get the confidence, and then maybe they'll stick around, maybe they won't. And then there's like the long-time local viewers. I love them most. The native New Yorkers, they watch just because they have pride in their city. And then there's even one more subset, people that move away from New York. They always want to know what's going on. Nostalgic. They want to know what's going on. They want to see what's going on in their home city. And when I do videos outside of Manhattan, I do Queens, I do Brooklyn. They love that stuff too. So I try to appease all of them, but it's difficult. Some videos are just more geared towards one group than the other.
In all those different subsets and subgenres, the commonality is you. People are watching you. So they end up building this parasocial relationship with Jon, and they think they know Jon. You are sharing, I'm pretty sure, not a lot about your personal life, but you're sharing some stuff. And like you are the vessel through which they are learning about New York City. So they think that they know you. To what extent have you realized that the audience is building a relationship with you, which otherwise would probably not have been possible if you still stayed in the sports world? So how have you adjusted to that?
I mean, it's a little weird sometimes bumping into people, and I didn't even know what this word parasocial was till like a year or two ago. And the perfect way to describe it is somebody approaches you on the street and says your name and talks to you like they've known you forever. And it was so weird for me. I always reacted like a deer in the headlights, like, oh, hi, thank you. I kind of was taken aback. Like I felt like I didn't deserve this. Like, how does this person know me so well? And then I realized the connection with YouTube. And my wife used to always make fun of me. She was in my videos more in the past. Occasionally, she's in it now. And she's like, you're always so awkward with these people. Why aren't you nice to them? I'm like, I am nice to them. She's like, you barely say a word. I'm like, because it feels a little strange. I'm much better now. And then a few months ago, my wife went to the library, the New York Public Library, and some Polish girl or tourist stopped her. It's like, oh my God, I watch your channel with your husband. Can I take a picture? And she's like, at that moment, I realized how awkward it can be. And I'm sorry I ever said that to you. So for the first time, my wife got recognized and she's like, okay, I'll give you some slack. It is a little weird sometimes, but no, I love it. I want people to feel like I'm their friend. I'm trying to show them New York, basically like I would show a friend of mine visiting the city. I'm not trying to be too stuck up. I'm trying to make it very relatable. Yeah, like I'll do cocktail bars. I'll do a nice rooftop, but I'll do dollar pizza. Like I try to show people everything. I don't want to just be narrowed down to cheap food, expensive food. I want to do everything and anything about this city.
So when it comes to your content and, like in mainstream media, there is always a focus group. Like I know for a fact, because I have presented stuff to these focus groups, and you first present stuff to focus group and test whether or not this works. And then you take that to market, right? Whereas in YouTube and in the digital world, your audience is both your focus group and your market. Like the audience will tell you whether or not your content is working, and they will be the same people who would watch it. So I'm pretty sure in your journey as a creator, you have had both sides of the feedback loop. You have had a positive feedback loop when you realize that the content is working and you want to do more of it. And you probably have also had times when the content is not working and the audience would tell you implicitly or explicitly. How do you react to both those feedback loops?
I would say more times than not, I get more positive feedback. I think to me, negative feedback is people don't click the video. I
Mm,
think we're giving, I want to say we're giving the viewer a lot of credit. If they're just going
yeah,
to click the video to tell me don't make this,
yeah.
they just won't click.
It's like passive
Yeah,
rejection.
it's like passive rejection. They have something else to scroll on their phone or
Yeah,
on their television, and I respect that.
yeah,
They don't want to watch the content. Uh, for me, negative is this video is doing way worse than normal.
yeah.
Why is it doing way worse than normal? Most of the time, it was an issue with the content. Like the issue was done when I decided to make this video. That was the problem. This was a bad topic, or it was too narrow of a topic, or
Niche.
or it was just I make videos outside of New York sometimes. I don't
Yeah.
just do New York. Sometimes I pick a destination they just don't want to watch. And then it could pick up later. So for me, if I see a video doesn't do well in the back of my mind, like I don't really do apartment tours anymore because I used to get
Interesting.
views on them.
Yeah.
And then I started to do them a little bit here or there and they did terrible. And I'm like, there's the evidence. As far as positive, again, it's just how many people are watching it. And am I getting really nice comments? People saying, thank you. I wanted this question answered. You really helped me out with my trip by going to this neighborhood, or I never would have discovered this if you didn't say it. But really, it's views, clicks. Are they watching or not? That to me is the true test, positive or negative.
The reason I'm asking is like
Yeah.
I want like young creators and people who are stepping into the space to realize that there is a really fine middle ground where you want to create for other people because they're telling you that it's working, and also you want to create for yourself
See.
because you genuinely like to give that value and you like making that content.
Yeah.
So like, what is that realization like on your end, and to what extent do you let it affect your creativity?
Well, I'll give you an example. I get comments like this all the time. John, do a vegan food video. John, do a video about this tiny little neighborhood in Queens. And I think to
Yeah.
myself, could be a good video. It's too narrow of a topic. It's just not worth it for me right now to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes the most vocal critics are the ones who aren't getting those videos made, and they're probably not made for a reason because a lot of creators, they don't want to do a vegan video. Nothing against veganism, but
Yeah.
they don't want to do it because they don't think it's going to perform very well. So just because you have a couple of comments about something, like don't let it get to you. Most people are never going to comment. Most people are just going to watch. That's the best thing they can do, is keep watching your videos. So I wouldn't let I don't try to take comments too personally.
Yeah.
But just because two people say make this video, like you don't have to make that video. You need to spell success with what is performing. To me, that is success. A few comments, I'll take a look at it, but if I know it's not going to do well, I'm not going to make the video.
Gotcha. Shifting gears a little bit and like talking about New York, obviously. And like you, for intentionally or not, you kind of are representing like New York to not just people who live here, but like also like foreigners who want to see what New York is like. And I just moved to New York from DC like last year. And there are like two ways of looking at New York. Obviously, the thing which is done the most is like romanticizing New York. And I'm not saying either is a pejorative, but like there's a version where like you tell New York that this is where dreams come true, starry eyes, billboards, Times Square, all that stuff. And then there's another version of New York where it's also a place where people live and work. There are people working every day, just like there are people working in Ohio, I guess. So, and there are some like harsh realities, like people can't afford a house, too expensive, all these stuff. So do you, John, like ever consider the responsibility of like showing what New York is like, or is that outside your content genre?
I think I try to show what it's like in certain videos. I've done
Yeah.
some cost of living videos.
Yeah.
I've even done videos about crime. Those always do well. Actually,
Interesting.
it's funny enough. I filmed it in Cortland Alley across the street
Interesting.
because it looks a little bit like shady there with the graffiti, which
Yeah.
I think is mostly for TV shows.
Yeah.
But I do feel a responsibility to be honest with people about New York.
Yeah.
I do think that the media really overplays the crime
Oh,
element.
definitely they do.
I think it's there for, as someone that works in the view space and the click space. It is there to get clicks.
Yeah, negative stuff works
Negative
better,
stuff works well.
Yeah.
I try to romanticize it sometimes with my B-roll.
Yeah.
If we're walking past the Empire State Building, I'll tell my camera guy, get a shot of this. Like, because people connect with that. They connect with the romantic New York.
Yeah.
But I will not make videos that just romanticize New York. I absolutely will not do that.
Yeah.
I'm happy to tie it in sometimes, but I think I'm more about the reality of it. I
Yeah.
love that. And I even like going to like more dare I say, local neighborhoods that tourists don't
Yeah.
go to. That is my favorite. I would do much better on my channel if I only covered Manhattan, if I only covered Midtown. Those videos take off.
Yeah.
But I have a lot more fun going to the local spots. And that's where I like what I do with my channel, that I can have my foot in the tourist side, I can have my foot in the local side.
Interesting.
So I would say I'm more about the reality of the city for sure.
That local side is super important because like there's like a lot of talk on like especially on TikTok about like transplants and stuff like that. Like most people don't realize that like there was a New York over 14th Street. So
I was once there, trust me.
Yeah, and again, neither is a pejorative. To each their own. If you enjoy just doing the default Manhattan shit, that's fine. But like there was there is more than New York to it, and like again, like you're representing all of it. So like the local side and the tourist side. So that like really cool of you. Also about New York, a lot of like young creators are moving here and move here to create more, to be around more creatives, and creatives are like a special kind where being around other creatives kind of like fuels your creativity, not just in a way that, oh, I gotta make this kind of content, oh, he's making that, but also in like a solidarity way, because more often than not you realize that other creators are going through like the same harsh financial stuff that you are going as well in the initial stages. So talk to me about your initial days of creating in New York, and was there a support system? And yes or no, whatever the answer is, what is the importance of being around other creatives in New York, Austin, wherever you are, like as a creator? How important do you think that is?
I think when I started, I didn't really seek it out,
Yeah.
but I didn't know any other New York City creators. I think until one of my good friends, Tal from the Traveling Clap, moved here for like 6 months. I think it was 2017, 2018.
Yeah.
We did a lot of collabs together. I didn't realize how fun it was to know other creators, to have another voice to complain to about the algorithm, about the audience, about the thumbnails. I think it's so important to network.
Yeah.
I WhatsApp so many different creators, not just YouTube, but Instagram. I'm in different groups. I think it is absolutely crucial to talk to other creators. It might be difficult if you're a beginner, but find other beginners maybe at the same part of the journey that you're in,
Yeah.
and you could help root each other on. I wish I was networking more. I think networking with other creators is huge,
Yeah.
not just for morale, but also even financially. They'll tell you, hey, I work with this company, or you could do this better on your video to get you more views. I think there's so many good reasons to network in New York, and I guess LA probably are the two hubs where if you're not finding other creators, you're not trying hard enough.
Talking about views, monetization, creators, where do you see YouTube headed? Because if you look at YouTube, there's like two different ways of looking at YouTube, or at least I do that. One way of looking at YouTube is like, this is where you find an audience. This is where you build a business. This is where you set yourself apart from like other creators, and you will be your own entity, and you can make this your living and expand it in any which way possible. The other way, the pessimistic and the more pragmatic way of looking at it, is like YouTube is basically like gig economy. Just like you can drive your car and Uber lets you call your car Uber, you are making videos and YouTube lets you call YouTube videos. So it's kind of like building your house on a rented land. It can go away any day if YouTube decides to like turn up the lights. So what's your relationship with YouTube, the platform, and where do you see this headed?
So I will say that I see YouTube heading in a direction of like Netflix, because if we sell a movie to Netflix, yeah, it's your movie, but I saw it on Netflix.
Yeah.
So when people see you on YouTube, I think there's a certain credibility lately, which is heading towards the longer form content.
Yeah.
When I started on YouTube, I believe my split of where people were watching from was 70% or so mobile, maybe 20% computer and tablet, and 10% television. Now it's almost 60% television.
Interesting.
I think more people are watching YouTube for longer and longer periods of time. And I think the big play is doing content that's really long, like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I'm seeing a lot of creators have success with that. It's difficult to edit. A lot of the ones who do well with it, they'll do the like almost uncut walking through city type of deal. But I think that people are more invested in YouTube on television. And I think doing longer form content in general is such a good financial play. and it's a great way to build a connection with your viewers.
Yeah, like both points super valid. Like the financial play, like YouTube, I don't know, I think released a report where like they realized a chunk of their audience, which previously was mobile, is now watching their stuff on TV. And like people are watching more and more stuff on mobile. Like YouTube was aggressively trying to compete, just like every other platform, compete with TikTok. And watching stuff on TikTok is like, I'm not hating on the platform, but you are watching TikTok like you would scroll through different channels on your TV. It's like a lean back experience. Like it's not a lean in experience. So you probably have watched plenty of creators on TikTok, but if I asked you name your top 5 creators, you would probably struggle.
Only because I know people. If I didn't know them personally, I couldn't answer that.
You would struggle. But like if I asked you name your top 5 creators, top 5 creators on YouTube, you will just say that right away because you have built a relationship with YouTube. And that's where I think YouTube is unparalleled. And if I had the keys to YouTube, I would just focus on long form content where people build this really strong relationships with the creators, so strong that if those creators were to like just leave the platform tomorrow, they would travel with them to whatever platform they are going. Talking about YouTube and all this is really great, but I want to end this on the fact that you are raising a 5-month-old in New York. So how is in New York City? And so how is it like, like raising a kid in New York City? People always say like, don't do that. Like, what are you going through right now?
I've actually had a lot of viewers ask me questions about this, and I haven't put them on camera that much.
Yeah.
I would say the biggest stressor for me outside of just the regular parenting stuff is the noise. If he's crying or having some kind of a meltdown, we live on top of each other here. I'm on the 2nd floor in my apartment.
In Brooklyn, right?
In Park Slope, Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So we have a couple above, a couple below. And if he's having some kind of a fit, I'm thinking, are they going to get angry? Are they going to say something to the owner, to the super? Because my owner said we were the first baby in the building in like 30 years, because our apartments aren't that big where I live. They're perfect for couples, but they're not huge for families. So that's the big stressor for me. But the great thing is, like, I don't have to put him in a car. We take the stroller. We walk around every single day. So many parks, so many babies and kids in Park Slope. It's insane how many families live there. So there's that. There's just so many activities in New York City. We haven't really taken him to Manhattan much, but just culture and mingling with kids from all over the world. I was at the park the other day. I heard a dad talking to his kid, I think in German. There was a nanny with a boy who had French parents. I just think about like how much more diverse my child's upbringing is going to be versus me, who grew up in Fairlawn, New Jersey, where it was just pretty white and everyone was pretty much the same.
Even though you're like 20 minutes away from the city.
Yeah, even like you could be 20, 30 minutes away, but the suburbs are a world away.
Yeah.
So I don't think I want to raise him in the suburbs. I think if I had to move somewhere more suburban, it might be in Queens, but I just don't see myself going back to the suburbs after living in New Jersey. No disrespect against the Garden State, against the suburbs, but I just don't think it's for me anymore. And I think he'd have an interesting upbringing being born and raised in the city.
The theme of your content and probably your life is someone who is, pitching New York to other people a lot. And not just like your viewers. Your wife is an immigrant. You probably had to convince her on New York as well.
Of course.
So you have
wasn't hard, but yeah.
You have spent a lot of time pitching New York to other people. I want you to take your time, like pitch New York to someone who not just wants to live here, or also who's just thinking about New York. What is it like?
Yeah. I mean, I would say if you can't find it in New York City, you can't find it anywhere. We have every type of cuisine, every type of person. If you want to reinvent yourself, you want to start new, that's been the story of New York City for generations and generations. It's where people come to start afresh. And I've never met a boring person in New York City. Come here to meet the most interesting people alive.
Perfect. Cool. Thank you, Jon, for your time.
Very welcome.
We good?